From the dawn of man, indigenous people from every corner of the globe have spoken of things that have now been discounted as myth or legend. Things they saw, lived alongside by, were looked upon as deities or worshipped by gods. Things that present-day man refer to as entities, spirits, demons, cryptid creatures, extraterrestrials, and much more. But sadly, modern man, science and society has discounted what our ancestors spoke of as legend and myths. But there are those of us that know what the ancient ones spoke of is the truth. Those of us who are obsessed with finding out the truth. This search for answers brings us into the world of the unknown and unexplained. It brings us on the trail, in search of living legends. Please join us tonight in another part of our journey to find these answers and bring the truth out into the light. Welcome and thank you for listening.
Hey, welcome everyone to another edition of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fountain. I'm here with my brother and my sick brother tonight, Mr. Nick Valente. Nick, how's it going, bud?
I wish better. Everybody,
Yeah.
I'm asking Jay to take the burden of the entire show from me because I can't. My voice is lost. I got COVID and I got hit really bad this week. So, but the show must go on, and we wanted to hear the second part and possibly a third part with Robin here.
Yep, absolutely.
So Robin, I know you don't have a lot of them, but possibly give us whatever Dogman ones you might have experiences.
Okay. Yeah, the Dogman, when I was a kid, there was one that used to hang around a lot. My experiences with them are not this big, scary, terrible thing. Have I dealt with bad Dogmen? Have I encountered them? I have, as far as through mind speak. I've gone out to areas where they've had the nasty ones, but they really have been very good with me. I had some that at one point in time, there was a threat that I was supposed to be kidnapped, to be put in a cage, because if I did, the theory behind it was the Sasquatch would come in to try to save me, and then these people were going to be able to shoot us and kill the Sasquatch. That was the purpose of it. And actually, the Dogmen were very helpful in preventing that. And so we had, at that particular time, I had 3 or 4 of them that hung around my house. And I knew they were there. I'd seen glimpses of them in the woods. And I had I would get visuals in my mind of them when they would mind speak with me. Right. And I would hear them out behind my house all the time. But we never felt threatened by them. They never were out of control. They were never, a threat at all. My son at one point had gone out to go hunting. And it was very early in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning. He went out back. We had 10 acres. He sat down at the base of this tree, and he was just going to kind of sit there for a minute. He fell asleep. He woke up, and there was a baby Dogman about 3 foot tall standing directly in front of him, cocking its head back and forth and kind of making a whimpering little noise at him.
Oh, wow.
And so he sat there and he didn't move. And then he heard the mom. And he thought, I'm in deep trouble. So it stopped and looked at him and then looked towards its mom, and then it ran off on 2 legs. So he jumped up and made a beeline for the house. He made it all the way back to the house, but she never even attacked him. Like, she never went at him. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time believing that she didn't know he was there.
Right.
It's a possibility because he didn't talk to her, neither did I. And so we just never had that problem. We moved to a different house, and there were some that were in that area. And for the most part, they were good. There was one there that I felt was a little bit more intense, and I was not comfortable having him around my kids. And the kids had walked, it was a private drive. The kids had walked down to the corner, and they did that every night. And then they walked back and they called on their cell phones. And my son said, Mom, they're Dogmen down here. Like, I can see them in the woods, but he said, this one is really getting close. And I said, that's fine. I'm getting in the car. I'm going to come and get you. So we're not going to put you at risk. And I picked him up, and everything was fine. But some of them, you have to understand, their personalities are not like a Sasquatch. They're just not. Their culture is different. Okay. The good ones are basically the police of the forest. They're patrolling everything. They don't want to be messed with. They have a job to do. and that's what they're going to do. And they don't want to be messed with. They don't want their families. It's not like with the Sasquatch where some of them are really curious about us and they want to know what's going on. That's not how it is with the Dogmen. They're perfectly fine just being left the hell alone. They really don't want. You get occasionally one that will have a really good sense of humor, and I've known 2 or 3 that have, or that are a little bit more friendly than others. We had a Dogman pup that was here at the house, and we had just moved in, and I was watching TV. I was exhausted. It was sunny outside still because it was summer, but it was like 8:30 at night. And I had my pajamas on, and he was mind speaking. He wanted me to come out. And I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I just want to pull energy," because they do that to me all the time. They want to pull my energy. And I said, "I'm too tired. I'm not doing it tonight." And he kept bugging and bugging. He said, "I'll even let you get my picture." And I said, "Okay, but here's the deal. None of you guys want your picture taken. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to try to take your picture. And if I don't get a picture, then you're a liar to me and I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're cut out." So I went out there and I got his picture. He was about 30, 40 feet up in the tree because we have these huge pine trees here. He was up in the tree and I got his picture. He's just a baby, and he's been around here since, but he's not as talkative as he was before. They're more stoic, they're a little bit quieter. Like I said, occasionally you'll find one that's a little bit more chatty, but normally they're not. But you've got several different kinds, and you've got ones that the government created, and those are trained killers.
Right.
They really are. And you have some that are ET generated. You've got 2 or 3 different races of ETs that have generated. You've got some that are earthborn.
Okay.
You've got some that are created, through legend and magic. And, so you've got all these different ones. And the other thing is too, obviously they've got to have some kind of canine in them because they're a dog man. They look like a dog. But
Yeah.
I've seen several different kind. Like I had one that came up by my front porch and I have a picture of him. And it's not clear, but you can see him. And he looks like the head of the coloration looks like a hyena, but his face reminds me more of what you would see with the pit bull. So clearly,
okay.
whatever canine they're being created with, and we'll know more about that. The Cryptid Genome Project is underway, and we're getting our samples, back, or they're not back yet, but we're getting them tested, and the genomes will get pulled. So we'll get some answers there. But from what I've observed, nothing from the study yet, guys, but from what I've observed, not giving any leaks because we don't have it yet.
Right.
But what I've observed, there's different canine heads on these things. So they've got to be crossing with different things, So the unfortunate thing is until you encounter them, you don't know which ones you're dealing with.
Right.
I've had some that they'll tell you flat out, "You're not wanted here. Just leave." But I will say that most of them, if they don't want you there, they give you clear-cut signs they don't want you there. It's not like, "Oh, I see you, I'm going to kill you." The ones over here, it seems to be a big thing too, where when they're with the Sasquatch, they're either in an area where they're fine sharing territories, even if they don't really want to interact a lot, they're okay being around each other. And then you have some places in some states where in areas where they don't want anything. They don't want to share a territory. They want nothing to do with each other. Now, I have a photo, and it's one that looks like the head of a bear, but it's got a tail on it because it's crossbred between a Sasquatch and a Dogman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't even know that they would do that, but apparently they do because I have a photo of one in my backyard when I was living in Michigan, and she looks like a teddy bear. She's got the upright.
How big was she, Robin?
She, from what I could tell, I want to say she had to be probably 6, 7 feet.
Okay.
She had the little pointy ears like this, like you would almost like a dog or a teddy bear or whatever, like a bear ear. And she had a little bit of a snout. But then if you look down by her thigh, you see this big flowy tail.
Right.
And she was with the Sasquatch. You can see the black head of a Sasquatch right next to her that's sticking out above a bush.
Wow.
And yeah, we named her Trudy. She was really nice. She was a nice girl. She never bothered anybody, always well behaved, never aggressive, just as mellow as could be. Built like the Incredible Hulk, but she was a nice girl. And for the most part, it comes down to the same thing with all these cryptids. It's respect. The thing with them is the Sasquatch have a lot more where they're curious and they want to interact more. And you will occasionally get Dogmen that do. I'm not saying you don't, but it's just not as common as it is per se with the Sasquatch. Right. And you've got to watch yourself with them. Like they know they're the alpha. you know?
Yeah.
And they don't mind being intimidating to back you off. They don't want anybody knowing where their people are. It's that simple,
Yeah.
you know? And so they will get right up in your face. I know a lot of people that I've talked to that have encounters with them where they do. They, you know, they will literally get up in their face just to intimidate them more so than a Sasquatch will. But it, you know, you have to understand it. You have to respect boundaries, and our people don't. They really don't.
No, not at
And
all.
so we push that envelope and push it, and then we get mad when they retaliate. You know, it's like we talked about this before, land between the lakes, perfect example.
Hmm.
You know, the bad ones go there for a reason. They want to be left alone. So we chase them into there, and then they retaliate because now we've chased them down, even though we know that we shouldn't be there because they're bad and people have died there. We go in there and poke that bear, so to speak. They fire back, people get killed, and the government goes in to annihilate them. When we're the ones that went in there knowing before we went, it's a volatile area. So it's like, if you know that, they are perfectly happy, to be honest with you, where if they don't want people around, they're perfectly happy staying away from us. We're the ones that go there. And that's not excusing what they do at all. That does not excuse what they do. It's a matter of, you know your boundaries, people. Why put
Right.
yourself in that situation? You know, and it's really heartbreaking because no, they shouldn't be attacking people, but yet they go there to get away from us, and we're going up there and chasing them around anyway. And then when they do, and somebody dies, then it's, oh my God, it's the Dogman's fault. Let me go kill them. Well, you went there. It's one thing if you don't know. It's another thing when you do. Just because you want an encounter, you want a good encounter, because a good encounter will last you an entire lifetime, and you'll get more and more and more, because they're all through a collective consciousness. They're all telepathic. The word gets spread, and you will get more interaction. It may take longer, but you'll get what you want. When you go in there and you get the negative stuff, you're done. As far as
Is
they're
that-
concerned,
That
we're
sticks with
getting
you.
around
That
quick.
negative energy sticks with you as well.
Forever. You
Forever.
can't get rid of it. And
No.
now you're marked because, you've already done this. So, I've had decent luck. I mean, we've got a werewolf that hangs out across the driveway, and, he's just a sweetheart and a half. He used to be in a government program, but that program ended, according to him, 30, 40 years ago. And he seems real calm and peaceful, and he doesn't have a tail. He has the werewolf type head, where the Dogmen do have the tail. My next door neighbor's seen the Dogmen over here. She saw two of them walking side by side across from her driveway in the field one night. They've come up by the house. I see most of the time, when I see them, they're in a semi-cloaked mode. So you can see the outline, you can see the features, but it's not completely physical. They have all the abilities that the Sasquatch do.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask you next.
Yeah, all the cryptids do. All the cryptids do.
Okay.
And across the board, it's one of those things where if that group wants to use those paranormal abilities, they can. If they choose to run their group where they aren't going to use them, then they don't.
Right.
But they all have them.
So they're all highly telepathic.
Oh, every one of them. Every one of them.
Yeah.
They can all cloak, they can shimmer, they can levitate, they can zap, they can project emotions on you. That wall of fear, the Dogmen do a lot too, because it gets you to get away from them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a good point.
Well,
Definitely.
it's like I was looking at land to move, and I was in this one place, and I was fine when I got there, and all of a sudden I got the wall of fear, and then they showed me a picture of themselves. It was Dogmen. And I said, listen, I'm not here to bust anybody, because I get sent to areas where they're not being very good. And I'm like, I'm not here to bust anybody. Like, I'm coming to look at the land, because if I take it, nobody else is going to move here. Okay, I'll have it. You'll be safe. And as soon as I did that, I got the love bubble from them. They just want to be safe. They just want to have their families and do their thing. Once I talked to them, because when I got hit with that, I was like, holy hell, like, I do not want to be here. It's, a typical reaction when you get that wall of fear. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I told him, I'm like, hey, Earth Keeper gives me permission to walk where I want to walk. This is where I choose to. Nobody's in trouble. If I decide to purchase this land, then you're safe. Nobody has to leave. As long as you're here with a pure heart, you're safe to stay. You can live your whole lives here. But if I don't take this land, somebody else will. And you could be in danger. So you have to decide what you want. And right after that, I got hit with the love bubble. So they were pretty good with it.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting that all these cryptids can possess the same abilities. You know,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
find that I find that incredible. It's just amazing. God, you know what? I was watching that documentary you were in a while back, and
Yeah.
I said I was watching it, and then you pop on. I'm like, "Oh, that's Robin,"
Yeah.
and
Did you watch the chapter 6 or the Mind Speak?
I think the mind seat because you mentioned these cat people.
Yeah. It was probably the Mind Speak. It was only me and then the producer.
What is the deal with them? I've been itching to ask you that question.
I've
What's the
not had
deal with these?
problems with them. I haven't had any problems with any of the cat people at all.
Okay.
I actually really don't. I get along really well with all the cryptids. I mean, you have your occasional crabby one, or that you just really want to go away. And I've been called out to areas where some bad ones were, to kind of
Mm,
clean that mess up. But
right.
the cat people, we have a female here. Her name is Amula, and she's just an absolute love. Like, we don't see her that often. She's relatively quiet, but you get such a nice feeling from her. It's just very peaceful, very calm. She doesn't bother anybody. She doesn't cause a disruption. And I worked with several of my clients that have had cat people show up. You've got some that have the big full mane, like Illyrian.
Mm.
In her case, she looks like a hairless cat.
Oh, that's one you were talking about before. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. She
interesting.
looks like a hairless cat. But I've seen other ones that have hair. A lot of the ones that my clients have around them have got the hair with them.
Okay,
I just, they're very easy to get along with. They're not one that I get too concerned over at all.
right, right. Wow. I was planning on asking you about them tonight.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
where are they exactly? What are they exactly? Are they interdimensional? Like
yeah, yeah.
like the
I
rest
think
of
what
them?
we're gonna, yeah, I think what we're gonna find with all these cryptids is there's gonna be a genetic trait in there that hopefully, as the study continues, we'll be able to nail.
Right.
But I think we're going to find that they all have pretty much the same abilities. I mean, there might be a slight variation, but number one, they're all
Sure.
telepathic, all telepathic, all work under a collective consciousness, all have insane abilities that we can't even imagine, but they do. And I think we're going to find those are the common denominators with all of it.
Gotcha. Interesting. No, that's good. That's cool. Now, Robin, last time we ended off, you were started to get into the abductions.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, could you get into that a little bit? When did all that begin for you?
Well, the first time I was really aware that it was going on was not the first time I had been taken. I
Okay.
didn't remember the ones prior to that. I was about 4 years old, and I remember my mom tucking me in at night, and then the next thing I knew, I was on a craft. And there were ETs that were busy doing things. It's not like, they were all staring at me. There was a female, she felt
Right.
female, whether or not she was or not, I don't know, that was standing there, and she reached out and she touched my arm, and it felt very cold and very clammy. I was in this ship and everything was white. And what I really noticed, because I've had the same memory of it my whole life, so I can like dissect it. One of the things that I noticed is there was it was like a mold had been poured for this ship. There were no angles. There was no bolts. There was no hardware of any kind. There was no seams. It was just like if somebody had poured a mold, that's what this ship was. And it was a bright white. The whole inside was white, including the floor. And then around the room that I was in, there was a door that went into the next room, and it was arched, and it had what looked like glyphs all the way around the edge of the arc. And when I looked through there, everything was white. And I looked through there, and it looked like a modern day CAT scan machine. Now, this is back in 68. So we didn't have CAT scan machines
Didn't
then.
have them, yeah.
And there was a man there laying there very, very still. And he had blonde hair and he wasn't moving. And next to him were two very tall, thin, long-armed grays. And they looked like they had almost like little I know this sounds stupid, but it's the truth. They had what looked like lab coats on. And they were
Okay.
standing there, and they kept touching him. But then behind them was the small gray, and he had the same kind of little coat on. And they had this table that jutted out from the wall. And again, there was no hardware for anything. It was just like it was molded.
Right.
And it was just like a table that jutted out. There was no legs under it, and it was attached to the wall, and it didn't bend or anything. And it looked like this, what would be a laptop shape device there. And then it had buttons on the wall, and the laptop thing had no keys. There was no keys on it whatsoever. It was just flat. It was like, the L shape. But on the wall, it had giant buttons, and they were about the size of the palm of your hands. And there was red and blue and yellow and green. And this small gray would go over there and it would hit the colors in a sequence. And as it hit it, it would light up. And then in the room that I was in behind me was another one of those tables with this weird looking laptop thing with no keys. And those buttons were there. And that one was doing the same thing. Now, the one that had talked to me, she was kind of like in an alcove, and she came out of the light, and that's when she touched my arm. Like I said, I say she, I have no way to know that it was a she. I did not notice any type of sexual organs on any of them, because they all had these white, like a coat type thing on.
Right.
That were long. And she told me that I'd been there before. And I have to believe her, because why wasn't I afraid? I was a 4-year-old kid. I wasn't afraid at all. So clearly I'd been there before, because it didn't upset me.
Right.
And I said, wait till my mom finds out. When my mom finds out I'm here and I'm not in bed, she's going to be so mad. And you don't want to make my mom mad. Like, I'm blessing this thing out. I clearly was not upset in any way, shape, or form about it. But I kept saying, when she finds out I'm not home, she's going to be mad. And you don't want to be around my mom when she's mad. And she just kind of looked at me like everything was telepathic. You never saw a mouth or anything move. And I could hear her laughing at me in my head. And in my head, the tall ones that were working on the man that was in the CAT scan machine, it was like I could hear their thoughts. But when they would talk, they were making a series of beeps to each other. It was really odd. I couldn't hear words. I heard like different pitches of beeps that they were doing in between each other. It was very weird. I don't understand that at all. I don't know what they were saying. I had no idea. When she talked to me, it was in English, and I could understand it. But it was all done through mind speak. I never heard anybody say, make an actual noise.
Right.
And then I remember sitting on my bed, and I'm like, okay, I'm back, and it wasn't traumatizing to me. I've had so many encounters, and some obviously were, but that one was not traumatizing to me. And it was something that happened throughout my life. Like, I've been out in my yard 10:30 at night, and I see this thing land, and it looks like molten lava, and it hovers like 2 or 3 feet off the ground. It never quite landed on the ground. It just got right up there. And I was on the phone talking to a contact that I had that was giving me like like government information type thing. And as I'm talking to him, I see this land, and all I can remember thinking in my head was, oh my God, here we go again. And then I don't remember anything. And it was like an hour and 45 minutes, almost 2 hours later, and I feel dazed. And what they do is this trancing thing. Your brain functions. Okay. Your brain, it's like you're talking to your own self in your brain, but your body is frozen solid. And then it goes into what I call automatic pilot. They watch you. If you're a person that they're going to do these things with, they've been watching you from the time you popped out. They know every memory, every mannerism, every person that you know. They know everything that you ever did, just like it would be a file on you.
Right.
So when this happens, your brain's active. Like, in my mind, I was going, oh my God, I just got taken again. What happened? What happened? Can I remember it this time? But the reality of it is your body is on autopilot. I walked in like nothing was wrong. I said to my kids, I said, has everybody got, snacks, homework done, showers? Yeah, Mom, we're fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to bed. I never went to bed before my kids went to bed. Yet I told them I was going to go to bed. I walk in, I go to take a shower, and I'm in there scrubbing myself like I'm going to peel my skin off. And the whole time my brain is like, oh my God, what just happened? Oh my God, what just happened? I come out, I laid down, went to sleep like I was a robot. For 3 days, I was like that. I took my kids to school. I came home. I didn't say a word. And the kids kept saying, are you all right, Mom? You're really quiet. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And I cleaned house. I took care of the animals. I took care of my children. I did everything I normally do. Like I was on autopilot. The third day I took him to school. I came back. I walked into the house up the same steps I had that night. And it was like it wore off in a blink of an eye. And I'm hyperventilating and I've dropped down to the ground and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And now I'm at home by myself. There's nobody to tell. You know, and of course, when the kids came home, I was a single mom at the time. I didn't want my kids scared. So I never told them at all, you know, but that's just the way it happens, you know. Now, well, not the last time, but a couple times ago, when they took me was a little bit different because the beam of light came through the bedroom window and it was like 8:30. And I thought, okay, that's what kind of night we're going to have. You know, I'm just going to stay awake. I'm going to be ready. You know, I know how to blast at them. I'm just going to ride it out. There's nothing you can do. So I'm sitting here and it was like 1:45 in the morning and I'm fine and nothing's happened yet, but I could feel something was going to. The animals are knocked out, like nothing's waking them up. You know, I've got a very large amount of dogs and cats and everybody is literally like dead to the world. Wow. You can't wake them up to go out to go to the bathroom. You can't wake them up for anything. The Sasquatch are nowhere to be found out in the yard. The Dogmen aren't around. It's like complete quiet here. It's never complete quiet here. And I'm like, okay. So now I just wait. Next thing I knew, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning and my cell phones had been disturbed. My slippers were moved. I didn't know where the cell phones were. They were later found and they were damaged. And I woke up. I was so groggy. It was like I had just come out of surgery. I mean, I couldn't even walk straight. And then I realized my pajama bottoms were on inside out. And I had the typical triangular mark on me. And I thought, okay, you know, here we go. But I couldn't remember anything. Now, missing time, I do fine with because you don't know. If you don't know it, what are you going to be afraid of? And it's happened on and off my whole life, so it doesn't faze me. This was different. And the next night, I was to the point by the next night, like I have medication for my heart and a couple other things. I wouldn't even take it because and it never makes me sleepy, but I was afraid it would. And I thought, I'm just not going to go to bed. Like I'm going to stay awake forever because I'm never going to go to sleep again because I knew something really bad had happened, but I didn't know what. And they showed up again the next night and I actually saw them this time. And one came I have an ensuite bathroom. One came out of my bathroom into my bedroom. And when he did, he like waved his hand across my floor and it looked like planets on my floor. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know what he was trying to teach me or tell me or whatever. I just saw these planets there. And then there was a couple of them that were over by the bedroom door. And I said to them, I said, why does it feel different this time? I really want to know. And the only reason that it triggered anything for me was something told me to watch this show called The Answers. And I didn't know what it was. So I looked it up on Amazon and it was on as a movie. So I went and I rented it. Still haven't seen it. The first person that came on had a flash of light come in their window. And that's when it triggered everything for me. And then that was when the ETs showed back up. And I said, I need to know what happened and why. And they said, just know that we did it to protect you. And I said, protect me from what? Well, there's a certain thing that's been after me my whole life and has actually put me in intensive care before. And that's what, you know, they were referring to. And I said, so what did you do? And they said, we made it so you didn't exist. And I said, what? And they said, you didn't exist. It was the only way to keep you safe. Now, I know it sounds crazy. And unless you experience it, nobody's going to get it. There is a huge difference than having missing time and knowing that you didn't exist on any plane, in any realm, and in any universe. Yeah, and that is the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. Like I've had really bad encounters. I've had really good encounters. That was terrifying to me. Absolutely terrifying. I didn't exist. And I felt like I didn't exist. And that feeling was more traumatic than a lot of the other encounters that I've dealt with. Oh, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. I mean, to know that you didn't exist anywhere. It's one thing to be taken. It's another thing to know you didn't exist.
Right. Wow.
It was really bad. Like I had another one where I was watching TV, and all of a sudden I looked, and there was 3 of them at the end of my bed, and there was another one next to me, and they did the whole paralysis thing. And I couldn't move. I couldn't turn my head. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. The animals weren't moving. And they had this thing next to my bed, and they put it on my head, and it looked like an upside down colander like you would have for spaghetti.
Huh?
Only it had tentacles. It was like a rubbery, cold, slimy thing, and it had it on the top of my head, and then the tentacles were going all over my face. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not breathe, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't scream. Now, anybody that knows me knows I teach how to do energy work to protect yourself, as well as, other things with it. So I went to go blast him. I couldn't even blast him because I couldn't move. And I started to panic. And then I thought, okay, you need to practice what you preach. You don't have to physically move to throw energy. So I had to mentally take myself out of the situation that was absolutely terrifying. Focus, pretend they weren't there. Just pretend they weren't there at all. Focus on me and say, okay, you're going to blast it out of your body all at one time, and it'll be okay. And that's what I did. And as soon as I did that, took care of it, and the whole thing was over.
Wow.
But yeah, I've had it where they've literally, I've been sucked through a wall, which is very painful, by the way, and levitated up off the ground to a ship. And the Sasquatch were what got me back down. And then, of course, when I got deposited back on my bed, I hit, and this is, you ever want to know if it's real or not? Wait till you get physically hurt. And I got dropped on my bed so hard, my head went back and hit the wall behind me, and I had a concussion for 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
I mean, I've had bones broken. I have had cuts, bloodied lips, bruises, always the rectangle or the triangle shape mark on me. I've had DNA.
Like when your body's sore, like I'm sure your body's sore and everything. All that.
Yeah.
Now, is that from being returned, or is that from what
Honestly,
they did?
I don't know, because a lot of it, I don't remember what all they did to me. I've had cases where I do. I think the thing that people need to realize is, number one, there are ETs on this planet. They're walking among us every day, but they can look the part, like they can imitate the voices, and they can look exactly like whoever they claim to be. Like when they come in dream state, they had one that looked and acted just like my grandmother. My grandmother's passed away, and my grandmother was everything to me. She was my entire universe. And so I'm in this dream state, and dream state is a real place. It's just a different plane. It's every bit as real as it is when you're awake. You can get killed in dream state. You can get hurt. You can have anything happen. I had my arm broken in dream state, literally broken. Try to explain that to a doctor.
Right.
And yeah. And so she was there. But what I've noticed is when they go to talk, they can imitate everything, the memories, the movement, the looks, whatever, even the voice. They can't speak fluidly. So you're going to hear them talk in the right voice, but it's going to be short sentences. It's going to be broken up like somebody speaking broken English. So those are the key things. And the eyes always look off. And the energy, for anybody that learns how to do the energy signatures, it doesn't matter if I teach you or somebody else, energy signatures, that is going to save you in all of this stuff with this, because energy signatures do not lie. And if you can read it, you can know what's messing with you. You can also tell if it's being honest, if it's, lying to you or whatever. And so it looked like my grandmother, and I followed it. And this is before I learned how to tell if it was really an ET or who it was. And I'm following this until it turned around to try to blast me. And I had an energy wave come flying at me. And, I was like, okay, obviously not grandma,
Right.
But yeah, they're very deceptive. They can do a lot of things. Not all ETs are bad. And I will say this, the government will also mess with us to believe that we're being abducted by ETs when it's really them. And I've had that experience as well.
Wow. Now, I had a question when you were talking about the time when you were little and you saw the grays and the lab coats.
Mm-hmm.
The shorter one was behind the two taller ones, right?
Well, the one was in the room I was in, and he was over by the wall by the buttons. And then the other one was behind the two tall ones, but he was over by the wall by the buttons.
Okay, now see, do you think are these shorter ones the brains behind the operation, or do they all have equal?
I've heard various things.
Yeah.
They seem to be at that particular time, they seem to be working for the tall ones.
Okay. Okay.
But I've heard that the small ones are worse than the tall ones. So I guess it depends. I do know that there's literally hundreds of different species of grays.
Right. Okay. Just
So
wow. That's a lot.
yeah, that was just my experience. But the tall ones seem to be, I guess I want to say more intelligent because they were working on the person, where the short ones were working on the buttons,
Okay.
you know, at that time. But
Right.
I've also heard over the years that the small ones are nastier than the tall ones. But I don't know that that's true. I mean, it just depends on your experience. I know there's hundreds of different kinds of grays.
Wow. And
You
I
know,
don't think
the little zetas I don't like.
the what now?
The little zetas, I don't like those. They're bad. I don't care what anybody says. They're not nice.
What do you mean? I don't think I've ever heard that term.
Zetas?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're from the Zeta Triculi star system. They're supposed to be, the worst of the grays. I don't know if that's true or not. I just know that my experiences with them is they like to do a lot of experiments. Every time I've ever been taken by them, I feel like a lab rat every single time.
Oh God. I can't imagine.
I mean, they put me up on this table and they're trying to take DNA. And, they've done a lot of things to me. And I told him, I said, I don't know what you're doing. You can't try to put a baby in me anymore. I'd had a hysterectomy and I'm like, forget it. Those days are done. Been there, done that, didn't like it, but they trashed my uterus to the point where I ended up having a hysterectomy. And I said, I can't even have any more kids, which was fine because I was done anyway. I had a lot of kids. But I said, so forget it. And they said, don't worry about it. We don't need the uterus. And I thought, dear God, what in the hell are you going to do to me now?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow.
Just not good. And men aren't any safer than women. They will draw sperm from the man. You guys aren't any safer than we are. And there's really nothing that you can do to stop it. I wish there was. And I'm sure some people will say, well, you can do this and this and this. You know what? Good luck. Try to be on the receiving end of it. And I can do a lot of stuff. I can do a lot of protecting. I can kill a lot of things. Anybody that knows me knows, I'm always for the greater good, and the bad stuff gets poof. But there are some things that we have to realize that go beyond our control.
Sure.
In fact, I'm going to be doing June 8th in North Carolina at Spruce Pine. We're having an alien expo and conference.
When's this? June 9th?
June 8th.
June 8th.
In Spruce Pine, North Carolina. And I'll be speaking, and so will the cryptic guy, Kristen McLeod. He's going to be talking about Benny and Barney Hill, which is going to be fabulous. I cannot wait. I'm so excited about it. But yeah, we'll be speaking there about a lot of this stuff.
Because we're, Stacy and I, we're moving back down, down south.
Are you?
I was hoping we'd be there in time, but I don't think we'll be there in time for that. But yeah,
There
we're
is
heading back down.
Spruce Pine is like the city.
Yeah.
North, south, east, west. Do you know?
I'm not familiar with it. This will be my first year there. But if you go online and put Spruce Pine Alien UFO Expo, it's quite a big deal. And you'll find it on there. And then you can scroll down to the conference. Christian and I will be there. Brooks Agnew will be there. Mark Barra from Ancient Aliens will be there. And I'm not familiar with all the rest of the people, but I hear that we've got a really good group of people that are going to be there this year. So yeah, I'm very excited about it. Really blessed that, they asked me to speak.
Awesome. I'd love to make it to that, but I don't know. I don't think we'll be down there by then.
Well, if you are, maybe we can get Gary to get the Earth roamer, and the three of us can go down.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be excellent.
Yeah.
Nick, try
Yes.
ground. I'm supposed to tell you this because the Sasquatch want you to know. Ground turmeric, 1 teaspoon, and a coffee cup of warm water for your cough.
Oh man, anything. Oh.
They said that's what they use.
Turmeric?
Yep, ground turmeric. Yep. 1 teaspoon and a cup of warm water.
So they came across with that just now?
Yeah. Well, I had known it before, but from years ago, a friend of mine was told that her daughter had a really bad cough, and she had told her, and then they had told me that when I had COVID, but they just like blasted it into my head that he needs to know.
Wow. How often does that happen, Robin?
Pretty much around the clock. Just
Yeah.
depends on what they want. Sometimes I'm like, God, everybody's been quiet for the day. Like, okay, you know, but let me get in a car or moving somewhere, because you're moving between time and space. So they want to talk then because other things can't listen as well. Or let it be in the middle of the night while I'm trying to sleep, and that's when they want to talk.
Right.
Yeah, it's random. Like there's no pattern to it. I'll be driving down the road, and all of a sudden the ones that I'm driving by, I'll be like, stop, we need to talk with you. Sometimes I'll stop and you'll just see me randomly stop and go walking off into the woods off the side of the road and find out what they want. Other times, if I'm really busy, I don't have time to do it, and I don't.
Wow.
But it's a pretty common thing.
Wow. It's
You know,
incredible.
and it's funny because I'll be working with clients. You know, I have the website now, and I'm,
Mhm.
you know, working with a lot of people, and they have no problem coming through, making sure these people know what they want them to know.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's wild. It is. Something that really interested me. I don't hate to keep backtracking, but in the last episode, and I've been thinking about this ever since then, you were telling me about how they brought you to where they lived and how everything was wound up so tight. It was actually waterproof.
Oh yeah. It was pouring like crazy outside. It was not one drop of water coming through.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah. I can still remember what the whole thing looked like inside, just like it was yesterday. It was just incredible, beyond incredible.
Okay, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Now with the Dogmen, do they, like, you hear about these people saying, "Oh, they live on my property," but this and that, and
Yeah. I
same
don't
with
buy that. I
yeah,
don't buy that. And the reason I say that isn't that I doubt these people, because I don't doubt them at all. Okay.
right,
I think because, and I've been like that myself, and I was corrected by them. Just because you're on your property, that's where they hang out at. That's where they hunt at. That's where they like to be. That doesn't mean that's where they live. When you find out where they live, you're really astonished, because like, especially with Sasquatch, the places that they're at are so incredibly hard for anybody to get to. You may find temporary nests around where they've taken a nap, where they're using it, where as a regular thing to sunbathe in, or whatever you want to call it. That doesn't mean that's their home. It really doesn't mean that's their home. And I mean, I found all those nests too. They built teepees all over my property, but the reality of it is those are a temporary sleeping place. That's not their actual home. Their home is so different. And there's a lot of people that have seen them besides myself, but they put them in places that are so incredibly hard to get into. Nobody's going to want to get in there, and they're not going to be able to. And as far as the Dogmen tend to like the cave systems. They, not that they aren't going to build themselves something to live in, but they like to use other buildings. They like to use the caves. It's just, but all of these things where they live at are usually so difficult to get into. We can't,
yeah,
and like I said, do they frequent the property? Yeah, they hung out on my property all day long. They still do.
yeah.
No matter where I move, they're doing it.
Sure.
But I now know enough to know that that's not where they're actually living. Now, maybe if I had 200 or 300 acres where they could get so far away, and it would be so embedded that it would be almost impossible for me to get to that nest area, then I could see it. And, for people that have that kind of land where the forest is so deep and far back where they couldn't get to it, it's very possible that they do live there. Then I would say, yeah, but it's not as common as everybody seems to think.
Yeah. Just because there's activity doesn't mean they're residing on that property.
Yeah, it just means they're nearby.
They're nearby, yeah.
They like that area. They hang out in that area. Yeah, they'll do that all day long.
Or they're crossing through to get to a body of water, or
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
a food source. But they
Yeah,
it's just an easement for them.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's some wild. Now, has anything happened? I don't mean to keep picking at this abduction thing, but has anything happened recently in the last year or so?
Yeah, I mean, the ships are coming more often again. We've got this huge energy shift that's coming up, and that will be just for everybody's FYI. Hang on to yourselves because it's going to be real soon. People are going to start, the people that will pick up on it, most people won't notice anything. Everybody just go on without your daily lives. But for the people that pick up on it, you might notice waves of emotions coming up and down. You may notice some negative energy followed by some good energy. Things are going to just feel off. They're going to feel different as this change goes on. And it's not going to happen like, oh my God, it started an hour ago, it's over with. It's going to come in waves. So just know that, the first wave's getting ready to start. So, but yeah, now I lost my train of thought when I switched over the energies. I'm sorry. I'm getting talked to at the same time. Go ahead and repeat your question because somebody needs to back off a little bit. Oh, here, the ETs. Okay. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, they're talking at the same time. They're just interrupting and they're being rude. But yeah, with all that going on, the activity is really heightened up. And I think I did send you and Nick, didn't I send you the UFO video from here?
You sent it to. There's one you sent me a while back. I don't think you sent us anything since the last episode.
Yeah, I haven't received anything.
When we get off of here, you guys, I'll send it to both of you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. MUFON said it was a class 1.
Oh wow.
But yeah, we get a lot of them here. We've actually got them where idiots that were here thought it would be fun to flash lights back and forth to them, and they responded. And I shot that down real quick. Trust me. Even my son-in-law said to him, they said, why would you do that? Do you have any idea what you're doing? And he's like, well, I didn't think. And I'm like, that being the key word. You don't know what you're saying, and they don't need any help to find me. Trust me, they don't need any help. Like, just let's put another X on my back that wasn't already there. But we get a lot of them. We really do. The activity with the ETs and the UFOs is predominantly increased and will continue to increase, especially with the energy shift. And, they're loud and proud and they don't mind people seeing them like they used to. The government also has ships that look like ET crafts. And so they're kind of confusing as well. You're going to tell the difference by when you look at these crafts, there is no rivets. There are no seams. Okay. So if you're seeing something that looks to be an ET craft and and you see rivets or you see a seam or a place of connection, that is our government. That is not, that's, them playing the games they play. That is not actually a UFO that's from an extraterrestrial. Now, I was out in my driveway one night. Igor Borstev and Janice Carter were coming to my house, and they had never been here before, and they had gotten lost, and it was like 1 a.m. And I live out in the woods. So it was very, very dark, and we had just had a hurricane, so it blew our floodlight out. So I had taken the car and parked at the end of the driveway, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I had the lights on so they could see which house was mine because they had never been there before. And it was taking them a really long time. So I turned the car off because I didn't want to sit there with the car running all night long. And I thought if I see any headlights coming down the road, I'll quickly turn the car on so they would know. And I heard, normally they're quite silent, but some of them actually do emit a noise now and then. And this sounded like a vacuum cleaner. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I'm looking around, and here's this huge craft. It was triangular shaped, not symmetrical at all, because the back part of what would have been the bottom of the triangle was very wide. And it was like half the size of a football field. And it was skimming just above the treetops, like it was following my road. Honest to God, this thing was like following the curve of the road because I live on a very winding road. And it was following it, and it was coming right towards where I was at. And the whole craft, it was not black or brown. It was very, very dark, like almost a dark brown that would look like maybe a dark bronze or something. I mean, it was really dark. And it stopped right at my driveway. Like I was underneath of it. Where my car was at was where the point of it would have been. And there were multicolored lights on each point. And I looked up at it because it wasn't that high up. It was just at the tree line, the top of the trees. And I saw the whole underside of it, and it looked like nothing but giant honeycombs, a honeycomb pattern underneath the whole thing. There was not one rivet. There was not one seam. It looked like rectangular sections that were filled with this honeycomb pattern, but they all were molded together. It was like one giant piece. And it was massive. And I thought, what the hell do I do now? And I was talking to a very dear friend of mine. And because I told her, I said, I'm out here at 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, if I'm going to be up, you're going to be up. So we were just, bullshitting and girl talking. And I'm talking to her and she said, oh my God, get a picture. I said, I'm not stopping to get off the phone with you to take a picture. You could be the last human I see for a while, so I'm like, not going to do that. Okay. But thank you for asking. So I didn't know what to do. So I turned the car on. As soon as I turned that car on and the lights came on, it vanished. It literally vanished. And it got quiet as it got to my house. The noise is what caught my attention. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known it was there. But when it got to my house, it was quiet. So I turned the lights on the car and it literally cloaked. Wow. And there was nothing around it. Like when it was moving, like there was nothing that would show that it was like by fuel. They move by energy and frequency. That's how they move. And these things work like a collective, from what I've been told by the ETs, they work as a collective consciousness with each of the individuals that are in that craft. It's almost like a think tank. And I mean, I can't explain it. I just, from what I've seen and what I've learned and what they've said. And so you don't see fumes from fuel. You don't see any of that. It's just like it free floats. But from what they've always told me when I was on the ships, it's done through a collective consciousness through them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very odd. But again, you don't see seams, you don't see rivets, you don't see anything that doesn't look like one perfect mold.
Right. That's how you tell the difference.
Yeah, from what I've noticed. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert, but from what I've noticed, yeah.
Have you ever seen a Sasquatch on one of these crafts?
Not while I was on the craft, no. Have I seen one going into one? Yes.
Okay. Wondering that.
And I've been told by some, that they've been up on the ships. Most of the ones that do that are ones that were generated by the ETs. A lot of our Sasquatch were earthbound. They were born here. If you ask them, they are human, and the other half of them are children of God. Okay. And that they were born here. And that doesn't mean that the ones that were ET generated are all bad, because I've worked with some of them and they're just as kind and loving as can be. Are there some bad? Yeah. But there's something good and bad in everything, because the universal law says you have free will. So it doesn't matter where you came from, how you got there, what you are. The universal law is you have the free will to choose if you're going to be good or bad.
Well, you got to have a balance of both. It's like the yin and the yang.
If you have a soul, you have, if you have a soul, you have the right to choose if you're good or bad. And you're right. You have to have, if you don't appreciate the good, if you don't know the bad, you don't want anything all bad, and you don't want anything all good.
Right.
The universal laws, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, Robin, that was amazing. Unfortunately, we are running out of time once again.
Yeah. May have to do a part 3. I'm sorry, Robin.
That's all right. I love you guys. I'll come back as much as you want.
We'll be making. We're booked for the next 2 weeks. I'll check the people, and then I'll get a hold of you, and we'll work out a time for you to come back on.
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll finish this conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Robin is awesome. She's just amazing. One of the best guests. You're one of the best guests I've ever had on this show.
Well, I love you guys. I really enjoy it with you guys, both of you.
Fun.
Nick, you get hold of me if you need anything. I'm going to send you guys that video. I'll pull it and get it over to you.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm going to make that turmeric tea.
Yeah. Try it and get the ivermectin, buddy.
It's coming. Good old Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Amazon.
Oh, yeah. I ordered it when we were talking about it.
Okay, good. It's going to taste nasty, but that's okay, because your taste buds are probably shot anyway.
Oh, I can't taste anything anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything, when I had it, it tasted like soap. Everything tasted like soap. And it was so bad because I went the first year and a half on the ivermectin, and I was literally hands-on. I have no immune system, and I was literally hands-on with patients that had COVID. Never got it because I was on ivermectin. They
Wow.
ran out of the ivermectin. I couldn't get it. And it took 6 weeks and I was down. Almost died.
Mm-mm.
It's like, thank you to the hairy people because they were what saved me. I remember when they showed up. I could hear them chanting and I could feel the vibrations and I started doing better.
What do they do? Transfer energy to?
Yeah, like I do healing work on them.
Okay.
And then they have done healing work on me, which I don't know why they need me when they can do it, but it is what it is. Some things they have to have our energy in theirs.
I got you.
I think that's the same thing when they're healing us because when I was in intensive care and they saved me, like I should have been in intensive care for 6 months. And then if I lived, I would be in the hospital another 6 months in rehab. And it was an ET attack. And instead, the doctor didn't expect me to live through the night. And instead, I remember when they showed up and I felt them put hands on my thigh and then I felt a vibration through my whole body and I heard them chanting and then I heard humming. And I was out of intensive care in 12 hours and home in less than 24.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then when I got bad with the COVID, I didn't want to call in healers because I don't do it unless I have no options.
Right.
But I got so bad, a friend of mine stepped in and said, if we don't do this, she's going to die. So she got hold of them. And I remember when they got here. And I started feeling much better right after that. Yeah, I'm a lot of work for them, I think.
Yeah, high maintenance.
I'm high maintenance. I try not to be, but
Happens. It happens.
it does. It happens. I know I talked to one the other night and it was, bless his soul, he's the dearest thing ever. And I said something and he said, "Are you sick? Are you sick?" And I'm like, "No, honey, I'm not sick." "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sure I'm not sick." And he's like, "Okay, let me know if sick." And I said, "Okay, I will, but I'm not sick. I'm good." So they keep an eye on me.
Fine, that's good. That's good. Well,
Good
thank
to have
you.
friends in high places.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Oh, you're so welcome. You guys take care. I love you both.
Love you too, Robin. And I'm gonna just stick around for a few minutes after we get
Okay.
ready to the recording. Everyone will be back next week. We've got a great guest coming on. And I will have we're booked for 2 weeks. Yeah, we're booked for the next 2 weeks with some good guests. So you guys are in for a treat. I'm not gonna give it away and tell you who, but you're in for a treat. So everyone have a good night. God bless, and everyone be good to each other. And Robin, thanks again for coming on.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Good night,
Have
Neil.